Welcome to the Weekly Juice Podcast, where we discuss all things real estate, personal finance, investing, and entrepreneurship. Whether this is your first time here or you're an avid listener, we're thrilled to have you a part of our community. Our goal is to share successful stories of entrepreneurs and investors in the hopes that these stories inspire you along your journey towards financial freedom. We discuss successes, failures, systems, motivations, experiences, and key lessons learned over time. After each episode, you should feel motivated, empowered, and prepared to take action in your own life. Make sure to tune in every Wednesday to get your weekly juice. You can also find us on Instagram at WeeklyJuicePod, where we post daily content, personal finance tips, and document our own journey towards financial freedom. This episode is sponsored by RentRedi. Are you looking for an affordable property management software to help you manage your rental portfolio? Check out our partner, RentRedi. They help us market and list properties, screen tenants, collect rent, manage maintenance, and maintain leases. You can visit their website at www.rentredi.com and use our code JUICEPOD. That's JUICEPOD for 50% off any plan. Get started today. Welcome back to the Weekly Juice. As always, it is your boys, Ryan and Corey, here with another episode for you. Today we had on special guest, Joe DelGrosso. He is a real estate investor from Knoxville, Tennessee. He has an amazing story of working in the TV business, started in Boston, then moved to California, then went down to Tennessee, and at one point had to make a pretty big pivot into real estate investing, build a portfolio of 7 long-term units and 2 short-term units. So he's in the Airbnb space now and is a huge advocate for it. And it just it was a very synonymous story to ours and where we're headed, and, breath of fresh air. Great.
Yeah. Guy. He's in a very similar position to us, right? In terms of the unit count and the pivoting into the short-term rentals. But so he kind of went this triangle across the United States. He's up from New England, moved out to Cali, and now in Tennessee, and the TV business, he's a producer, right? You mentioned that. So made some great money. Him and his wife was an accountant. So they built up this sum of money. They started investing and just reinvesting in themselves and in properties. And they did all of these 9 properties they bought. They did it with their own money, which is very cool. But then they realized, the long-term game is it's harder. It's long. It takes long. So they pivoted into the short-term rental space. But a really interesting fact about Joe is that he had a pretty serious and scary brain surgery in the past, literally the past 10 weeks. And it gave him an entirely new perspective on life and a thankfulness and a gratitude towards real estate investing and building wealth and passive income. So this episode is a blend of philosophical and mindset and being grateful. And then also we get into the details of the nitty gritty and how he built his portfolio, which are our favorite episodes to have both in it. So I don't want to ruin any more of this episode. I thought it was a really good one.
I couldn't agree more. Let's bring him in. Joe, officially welcome to the show. Corey and I are absolutely thrilled to have you on and to hear your story out and have you share it with our listeners.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. So if you could give us a little background on yourself, who you are, where you're from, and then how you took the deep dive into real estate investing.
Yeah. So I'm 36 now. I grew up in Boston, Southern Mass. I work in television. So I worked in TV in Boston for years and years. And then eventually in 2011, I moved out to LA to work in TV for a little bit. And then that actually led me out to Knoxville and been here ever since for about 10 years. And I've been investing in real estate for the last 6 years, and we have 7 long-term rentals and 2 short-term rentals.
Great. So give us a little bit of the story of getting to Knoxville, and are all of your properties in Knoxville? Is that where you built your portfolio? I'm curious on kind of, as you landed there, maybe the why behind that place, and then how you started to accumulate properties in Knoxville.
Yeah. So, really, it's funny. TV led me to Knoxville, Tennessee, of all places, which is random as heck. But I've been in the TV industry now for 20 years. And as some people might know, it's very just roller coaster. It's up and down and up and down. It's, you're jumping from project to project. So when I moved to Knoxville, it's, I was leading up a show called Impractical Jokers for years and years. And, even with a big franchise show like that, you have dead periods. It's very much like a roller coaster in TV. So, just kind of seeing that. And because I started in the TV industry when I was 15 years old. So like I saw how people in their 40s and 50s at the end of their career were like, what the heck do I do now? It's like, there's no safeguards there. So that was really fortunate for me to see as a 15 and 16-year-old, like, okay, I got to have like a backup plan. And then as I kept going in the industry, it was like, all right, what am I going to do here? So I saw my parents, they were teachers, but they invested in real estate. They were able to give us a great life because they invested in like 1 or 2 condos, nothing major. And they didn't really run it like a business or anything. It was just the smart thing to do. They bought some condos and that was the way they were able to give us such a great life on a teacher's salary. So I saw that. So I wasn't scared of real estate. But yeah, in 2016, we took our first jump and bought our first property and started going from there.
Cool. So we learned that you you actually left the 9-to-5 very recently. So you're able to use your portfolio to get to like this baseline of financial freedom, right? The story is you have 7 long-term rentals now and 2 short-term rentals, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool. So can you talk about the scaling of this and how you got from that first one that you were just talking about to 7 and maybe what that brings you in, because it's amazing that what you've done, but it's attainable for other people. Like it's very, very doable. And if that number of properties, those 9 units there can get people to a baseline of financial freedom, I think a lot more people would try to figure out how to do that.
Yeah. The reason why this asset class is so good is because you can royally screw it up and it's so forgiving. My wife and I, we are partners to the fullest term. It's like, she and I do this together. And in 2016, we bought that first property. It's like, we had no idea what we were doing. We just thought like, okay, we should invest in property because that's a smart thing to do. And it's a tangible asset that I can like touch. But so from 2016 to 2019, we bought 1 property a year. We had 3 properties. And we weren't raising rents. We weren't running them like a business. Once in a while, we'd look into the account and there'd be a few thousand in there. We'd be like, oh, let's go on vacation. It's like, I never heard of bigger pockets. I never heard of, financial freedom. I never heard of those terms. But then in 2019 was like a big aha moment. I was actually filming a pitch tape for HGTV and I was following around this big multifamily investor and we were following around getting all the materials. And he's like, that one cash flows this property over here generates this. And he started throwing around these terms that I never heard before, like financial freedom and generational wealth. And I was like, well, I own property, but I just thought it was like when I'm 60, I get to enjoy it. And so that's when it just like clicked and I started listening to podcasts. I started reading books. I'm like, I could run this thing like a business and it's not something that I have to wait to enjoy until I'm 60. It's like, no, I can optimize this thing now. And that's just when like, boom, like 2019 was when I just started looking at it completely different.
I think that's incredible. I think your story is very fun too. We haven't really dove too much into the TV thing, but can you just walk us through kind of the transition from LA and why you picked Knoxville specifically? Like dive into the market a little bit. I know you said TV took you there, but can you talk us through the area and why you guys invest there as well?
Knoxville, first of all, Tennessee, there's no state income tax. So immediately when I moved from LA to Tennessee, I was making the same salary, but I was clearing more. And I was like, what the heck? And I rolled into Tennessee on 2 wheels, 5 digits of credit card debt because LA was so expensive. And I was a mess, but Knoxville and the whole Southeast is just, it's so affordable, and it's like, there's so much opportunity. It's like I rolled into town 10 years ago and you could still buy a property for 80, 90,000 and have that thing cash flowing like crazy. And it's just, there's so much opportunity here. And, once we figured out how to actually, find the properties and run it like a business with systems, we were just off to the races. I love the Southeast. It's on fire.
Cool. So do you have like a specific, we call this on other episodes, we've talked about a buy box, right? You have 7 properties. What are the typical units that you would like to accumulate that Is there a certain criteria that you look for? Maybe that's changed over the past couple of years, but I'm curious to go from that 1 to 7, and then we'll talk about the transition to short term too, because you can obviously gain more cash flow from that. But like, what was your strategy? What did you look for once you started to realize that, oh no, this is going to be a business for me and not just a thing that helps me when I'm 60?
Yeah. I mean, I think when I first got talking to that multifamily investor, you know, and I dove into that world and how multifamily is around Knoxville, I was like, you know, that's not right for me. So I really kind of had to craft my own buyer's box for what I wanted. Like I wanted properties that are A class type properties that target, you know, great tenants that I'm not going to have to worry about all the time, that aren't going to have police showing up at their house. It's like I targeted properties that, you know, I would live in if I was, you know, in their situation. So, I mean, our price range was anywhere from like 100,000 to 200,000. You know, we targeted a net cash flow of 400 to 500 a month. They appreciated well. They're in good areas. We just went after it. And instead of buying one property a year for 3 years, we bought 3 properties in like 1 year.
Yeah, that's a not a huge barrier of entry, right? In that area you're in. And I think to get $400 to $500 a door is awesome for the price point that you got into. So that's exciting. I also wanted to know if you guys currently hire out a property manager, if you manage the properties on your own, and what is your thoughts on that for, you know, kind of turning this thing into a business?
I think there's different milestones. It's like even just kind of taking it back to like when you should start your LLC. It's like, or if you should start an LLC, it's like 3 properties. I don't know, like 1 to 3 properties. You really don't need an LLC, in my opinion. It's more of an umbrella policy. And so that was that first marker. Once we hit 3 properties, I was like, all right, let's get an LLC. Let's get this thing a little bit more organized. And then, we self-manage everything. You know, we organize everything through Google Drive. We share all the stuff there. You know, it's like I'm in charge of the long-term rental. She's in charge of, my wife, the short-term rentals. So we organize it in that way. We also try to empower our tenants. It's like on the long-term rentals, it's like we keep a cheat sheet on the fridge where it's like, if you have a plumbing issue, call this person. If you have an electrical issue, call this person. And those contractors know that if it's above 200, 300, they got to get my approval first.
Got it. So you have like your own built-in property management system, essentially, where you're allowing your tenants to go kind of direct to the contractors. You have that trust factor there, because we just hired a property manager and they were saying something similar, like everything goes to them, right? So the point is we don't have to diagnose, and that's great. But you have a system where you're sending it to the contractors, and the contractors are still the ones diagnosing it. And then you're just getting approval if it's not, you know, a clogged drain or something very simple that'll charge you $175 for.
Yeah, it's kind of empowering the tenant, you know, and it's like we do a pretty good vetting process. We do background checks, credit checks. You know, we meet with the people in person. We do not rent out to people we haven't met. So, I mean, there is that layer of like making sure they're a functional, normal, good person first. And then, and then we empower them. It's like, you know, here, contact these people when there's something wrong.
Awesome. Do you use any systems outside of like building your own system right here? Like just resources that other people that are getting in the game can potentially use, like do you a specific property management software, things to manage your books, or is it just all Google Drive?
I mean, for the long-term rentals, it's the Google Drive. You know, for short-term rentals, I mean, it's all systems. It is. I got 3 different platforms that are running this thing where I just don't even know when there's someone staying at my cabin, because it's just like, it's so automated now. The systems are so easy, and they seem intimidating at first, but it's like, if you put in 15 minutes of work, you understand it. And so for the long-term rentals, I mean, it's easy to manage. It probably takes up about 30 minutes cumulatively of our time a week. You know, I mean, they're running pretty smooth.
It's not bad at all. So I do want to transition to short-term rentals and why you made that transition too. But we'll talk. We'll ask some questions about the short term. But first, like, why after the 7 did you say no? We got to, so to speak, like turn this thing up a notch, like go into the short term, get more cash flow. Was that the whole idea behind it?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of, you know, how you have like gut check moments. I like to call them like pocket check moments, where you think you're rolling good and you're doing all the right things, and all of a sudden like life happens and there's kind of like a pocket check moment where you're like, oh wait, that's not what I thought it was. And so, 2016 through 2020, we were rolling. We were finally understanding the property game. We were listening to podcasts, reading books. We had 7 long-term rentals just rolling. And then all of a sudden, my TV industry just again was just going through like another cycle where it was up and down, up and down. And I was just like, I need a break. I want to take a few months off. I just need a little peace of mind. And so I was like, I got 7 properties. I can take some time off, right? And I was like, wait, no, I can't. And it was kind of that pocket check moment of like, all right, long-term rentals are amazing. They're amazing wealth builders. You need to have them in your portfolio. They appreciate nicely. They're just layups to do. They're easier to do. But at the same time, from a cash flow standpoint, they are not going to get you to that financial freedom, 10 years faster than what you want, because it's, 7 properties times $400 or $500 a month. It's like, when it was just my wife and I, yeah, sure. But with 2 kids, it's like, no, that's like the daycare bill for the month.
Yeah, that's so funny, Joe, because one of the things that we've talked to so many investors at this point, you're episode 106, but somebody that comes to mind who we've talked about on a lot of shows is Coach Carson, Chad Carson. He's not in Tennessee, but he's in the Carolinas.
Yeah, I've been on his podcast.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So are we. Yeah, he kind of put it in our head like, all right, man, you guys are going to need 30, 40, 50 units. Like you can't, if you think 20 is going to do it, you're probably going to need a third more than that to even get to that point. And we're learning this right now. I was just telling you before the show that I had a problem at a property today, and this is a problem property, but it lost me my cash flow for the year. Now it's appreciated significantly. I'm not losing sleep over it. It's all good, but it does take a lot longer in the long-term game. Thus is why we have not had a shift, because we're going to continue to build the long-term rentals, because it is that built-in retirement whenever we decide to do that, with the appreciation, with the small cash flow. The short-term game is it's powerful, especially in your market in Tennessee, which I want you to kind of elaborate on now. What about your area, Knoxville, or wherever you own these properties in Tennessee, is a major attraction to people?
I mean, Smoky Mountains, Sevierville, Gatlinburg is just like, I feel like it's the mecca or like the hub of the short-term rental game. It's just, it's everything, And so, I mean, so 2020 happened and I was wanting to take some time off. It had nothing to do with coronavirus or anything like that. TV was still humming, but it's like, I just want to take some time off. I thought I could with the 7 properties. And I was like, no, that's not where it is yet. So flash forward, it's like we discovered short-term rentals. We were listening to podcasts. We found Avery Carl, like a lot of people have. You guys interviewed her.
Yep. We're hooked up with her team. So yeah.
Yeah. No, it's she's great. Her team is fantastic. So we just dove in and it's funny because I just feel like whenever you get into either buying long-term rentals or whatever you're doing, it always feels like you're overpaying, right? So we went and we got our first cabin in June 2021, we got our first cabin. I was like, oh my God, this is so much money. Like 2-3 years ago, it was half the price. Like, what are we doing? And I mean, the thing's on fire. I mean, it's amazing. Like it's cash flowing like crazy. And it just brought us to this next level that we didn't think we were going to get for another 10 years. And so that was just like a big, like, whoa, like, what is this? Like, we don't have to just do 30 long-term rentals. Like we can get short-term rentals for the cash flow side of it. And that will keep us running.
Talk to us about the difference, Joe, in the price point and then what that brings you in cash flow monthly in the short-term space, because we've learned through a number of people that have been on our show that it is an absolute game changer and you can be 10x what your return is on the long term. Is that accurate for you? Yeah.
I mean, for a long-term rental, it's, we were doing the 20% down investment loan. So you're coming to the table with, $45,000 at the end of the day for acquisition costs when you factor in closing and all the other stuff. And then, but with these short-term rentals, you can come in with a vacation loan. So you're getting so much more property and so much more cash flow for almost the same amount of money. So it's like we got our cabin for just a little bit more than what we would have paid for a long-term rental. And it's 3 times the net cash flow. It's like where we were getting $500 a month from each of the 7 properties. And now we're all of a sudden getting $1,500 a month on average from a cabin for net cash flow. And the thing's just running itself.
What is the occupancy rate that you're seeing? And I'm curious, like how many night, so the occupancy rate, and then what does it rent for per night, the specific property that just pick one of your Airbnbs. I'm just curious.
The one in Sevierville, I mean, that goes for anywhere from like $350 to $450 a night. We aim for about 80 to 85% occupancy. You know, for instance, January and February are pretty slow. And then after that, it's like you're back up to like 85, 90% occupancy.
So let's talk about the argument here for self-managing versus hiring a property manager for a short-term rental, because we've been told, you know, Avery's team has advised us. They're like, listen, guys, you can 100% do this by yourselves and you won't lose that 25% management fee, up to 25%, right? Other people are like, listen, you don't want to be thinking about this stuff all the time. You don't like managing your long-term portfolio. A short-term portfolio is even crazier. It's got so much going on a daily basis. You got to manage these systems. So if you don't like that, you're certainly going to hate this. So
they're talking directly to us about what we like and what we don't
so
like.
I basically want your thoughts, because it'll help guide us in our decision when we, you know, kind of make our move.
No, I mean, it's like a pain in the ass. Long-term rental is a real pain in the ass. You know, it's like, that's just not fun to deal with all the time. And it's like, you want to get rid of that asset. But short-term rentals, it's like, it's just more fun. It's like a better experience. I mean, it's, you know, self-managing, especially with just all the automation. I mean, I have a system, or I have a platform that tells me what to price it at. I have a platform that interacts with the guests, and these guests really think I'm talking with them, but they're all canned messages, you know? So it's like, and then I have the booking platforms, Airbnb and VRBO, who handle all the money side of it. So it's like, I have people just coming in and out of these cabins that I just never even interacted with. Like, I have 2 cabins right now. I'm looking up at my calendar. Both are occupied. I have no idea who's there. So, and I mean, and what's nice about the short-term rentals, it's like, you're getting those cash pings every week. Whereas long-term rentals, you're like, where's the first of the month? You know, come on, you know, it's all, you know, let's get there. But with the short-term rentals, it's nice. Like, I feel like every other day I'm getting a deposit, and it's just, and the systems are just there. Could I have been an Airbnb host or a short-term rental host 5 years ago? Hell no. Like, I would have not wanted to deal with that. Like, the constant changing of guests, their issues. Oh my God, what's the Wi-Fi password? I would have not wanted to deal with that stuff. I would have been the worst short-term rental host you could imagine. But now with the systems, it's like everything's there.
Cool. I really like that. And I know you've mentioned, project to project, ups and downs in TV world, right? So it kind of is nice where this is your job, like managing your short-term portfolio now too. And it probably is a little fun going in and kind of learning how to guide the ship and all that. So you mentioned, I have a couple questions here, but you mentioned AirDNA that helps you, or I don't know if you mentioned that specifically, but Price Labs we use. Okay. So there's 2 companies that people recommend, AirDNA and Price Labs. And that's kind of how you would guesstimate, right? Or a little bit more than guesstimate, but like finite near numbers on analyzing the deals and seeing what the occupancy rate would be and kind of help you figure out what your property would generate for a year. So that's good there. Then can you give us the other 2, the 2 other heads of the 3-headed beast? So you have the pricing tool, what's the management tool? And then I guess Airbnb and AirDNA is the last piece.
Yeah. I mean, it's the 3 heads are the booking platform, the management platform, and then the pricing platform. So the pricing platform is Price Labs. The management platform is Hospitable, which used to be Smart B&B. So, I mean, you can all your messages. You do an hour's worth of work when you first acquire the property to set it up, and then that thing just runs itself. And that sends your guest, all the address information, login information, all that stuff 2 to 3 days beforehand, sends them a message the day of, sends them a message like 2 days into their stay. Like, it's just, it interacts with the guests to let them know that you're there when you're really not. And then the booking platform is, we book through Airbnb and VRBO. Perfect. That's where we list.
Awesome. And so a lot of people talk about their portfolio, right? Like, hey, I accumulated 7 units long-term, and then I have 2 short-term rentals. Can you take us through the process of the day after closing, right? You close on the cabin, and I'm thinking like, okay, I have this property now. What the hell do I do? How did you start like managing, building your team and putting your systems together, just so to give people like a bird's eye view of what it actually takes to set this thing up? Because I think a lot of times we just skip to the good part of the cash flow, and it's like, no, this takes time and there's different steps that you got to go through before it is set up and kind of running smooth.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, once you close, I feel like there is that 2 to 3 weeks where you are getting it set up. It's like you're meeting with contractors. Your cleaner is by far the most important position on your team because they're just your boots on the ground every day. I mean, they're doing the turns. They're telling you if something was broken. They're reporting on every different thing. Like they're really a cleaner in the short-term world is just so different than in any other world. So I mean, yeah, the first 2 or 3 weeks after you close, you're meeting cleaners, meeting contractors. If it's both of our cabins uniquely were not furnished. So like my wife absolutely crushed it. Like she just is on that next level of just understanding the design space there. And she furnished both cabins. And I mean, they look freaking amazing. So my wife, like she was doing the design lane and getting that up and running while I was meeting with the contractors and getting the systems in place. So it's like, we really work well, like a team like that.
That's awesome. Now I'm trying to think of like building these things out, like, right. You have to go meet these contractors and like, how do you know who to trust? And like, did she hire an interior designer to help her with it? And how much did all the furniture cost to pull in there? Can you just like kind of zoom in even more for us there and just walk us through that?
Yeah. I mean, furnishing was because these were formerly long-term properties, like people lived there. We had to completely furnish them ourselves. So, I mean, at each cabin, it costs roughly about $25,000, $30,000 after closing to furnish them. Now, here's what's amazing. We made that money back in 2 or 3 months. And
wow.
I mean, it was just like because we headed into the holiday season. So that's when your cash flow just goes through the roof. I mean, we average 1,500 net cash flow a month over the year, but like November, December, for cabins are just through the roof. Like it's stupid numbers.
2 months, you made 30K, 30K.
I'd say probably about 3.5 months.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Really good perspective.
And that's the difference between a market like yours where, your average nightly rate is 385, but you're talking about that might be 175 in the down months, and it might be 600 in those months that you're talking about. So you have these ebbs and flows of spikes, which is great because you're able to, you kind of know when it's going to happen in that business. But
like to the point that you're kind of leading to there, it's like balance, because short-term rentals, it's like, at some months I'm charging $600, $700 a night. Some months I'm charging $200 a night. But what's nice is balance in the portfolio. I have my long-term rentals, which I know what I'm making every month. Short-term rentals, it's like, it ebb and flows, but it's still cash flow. It's just different amounts each month. Sometimes like the short-term rentals are just coming in like a giant hammer with cash flow. Other times it's, a little bit lower.
Totally makes sense. So I want to just kind of remove a stigma real quick of people think it's very hard to build a team in regards to finding a cleaner, contractor, etc. What are your thoughts on this? This is what we recommend to a lot of people. It's like, if you have a rock star real estate agent and like boots on the ground person, they should have connections that they can at least lead you to, and then you can kind of start interviewing from there. Are you one of those guys? Or are you one of the, hey, no, listen, I'm going to find my own people?
No, I mean, we went through, so for our short-term rentals, both of them, we went through Avery Carl. And so like day one on closing, you get handed a whole pamphlet of contacts. And so it has your contractors, your handymen, your plumbers, electricians, and cleaners and photographers. So it's like day one at closing, and they won't, it's like they send it to you as soon as you sign, and it's like, here's everything. And you just got to go out there and meet them all. And I mean, it's a layup, they do all the legwork for you. All you got to do is shake the hands.
We are hooked up with our team in Orlando, because that's where we're looking for our property. And so far it's been great. I mean, we just got, like I said before the show, we just got pre-approved, and they do a really, really good job. There's a lot of YouTube videos. So, I mean, shout out to Avery in the short-term shop. We had her on, I don't remember the episode. It was in the 90s. It's one of our best episodes, but yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And that's so cool that they're advocating for not hiring a property manager. We're kind of torn. We've listened to some people that say that it would be a good idea. We still work our 9 to 5, so we don't have like the time that you do. So we will figure out and determine whether or not it's a good idea to hire a property manager or save that 20 to 25% and use the contractors and kind of manage it. But I would say I'm probably leaning towards still hiring a property manager, but
just to start out, and then we can learn it too, right? Like, yeah. I mean, I can't tell you, it's funny. We learned so much going through hands-on self-managing our 7 units, but long-term units. But after hiring a property manager, I'm like, damn, I just learned so much. Like there's so many other things that I haven't thought about on a daily basis that they bring to your attention. You're like, all right, I'm still learning something new. So I think that we can kind of get our, I guess, kind of start this thing with training wheels if we do have a property manager. So I did, Avery is amazing, right? She wrote the book on short-term rentals, right? She's affiliated with Bigger Pockets, has a huge network, a bunch of different places all over the world, but she's also a really cool person. I'm curious. I know she sends this pamphlet of all these contacts. Does she send you a property manager if you want one, or is she strictly managed yourself?
I mean, I never asked for it. I mean, as soon as she sent me all that stuff, I was like, go, and then they hold a course after you close where they teach you the systems. They teach you they show you the price labs. They show you the smart B&B hospitable. They show you all that stuff where it's like, you almost question yourself. It's like, why would I even hire a property manager and give that money away? Like, this is so easy, So, I mean, it's just, they really spell it out for you. So it's just paint by numbers.
Love it. Love it. I want to talk about your funding now, because you have talked about, and before we were talking earlier, before we started recording, you were talking about how you funded these units all by yourself now. And you're kind of at this inflection point in your journey that is, you're saying, okay, we have Southern Sons Properties, which is your LLC that you've put these properties in, which is great, your company. And now you're transitioning to Southern Sons Partners. So can you talk about that transition, and also how you were able to consistently fund and refund using nobody else's money to build this to 9 properties?
Yeah, I mean, the first 3 properties, it was just my wife and I hustling. I mean, it's like we saved like crazy. We lived way below our means. I mean, it's like we were both making pretty good money. I was a TV producer. It's like she was in accounting at major companies. So it's like we were making good money and we were living way below a lot of people that we knew who were living a lot larger. It's like, I think we both got raises in 2016, and we had a boat at the time, and we actually sold it. And we took that money and put it towards our first property. So it's like, as we were making more money, we were trying to lower expenses, and we just got hyper focused. It was, save. So it was 2016 through 2019 was slow, right? Like we bought 1 property a year on average. So it's like it was save, buy the property, reset. Save, buy the property, reset. But then once we learned in 2019, Bigger Pockets, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all that other stuff, we used our properties to buy our other properties. And that's where it just started like escalating more. We were doing cash out refis. We were doing HELOCs. So properties, 4 through 7, that's really how we scaled so much faster, is using that.
I don't know if we've met anybody on the show that has such a similar, we're not in the same geographical area, but like such similar trajectory is like, we're right in the same zone right now. It's really interesting because we were in that point where we're like, this is annoying. We're saving up 50 grand. This is hard, and then your bank account's depleted and everyone's else is going and spending that money. And I wouldn't do it that way, but it's like, everyone's living life and you're like, well, I'm investing and it's great, but then you do it again and then do it again. And you always feel like you're cash poor. And that's what's consistently happened. And then we just took out home equity lines of credit and we're just transitioning into the short-term space. So when you're able to refi or take out a home equity line of credit, you then kind of start to become your own bank in a way. And then the fun really begins, especially if you have appreciation within those properties, which we do. So what I'd like to talk about is your Southern Sons Partners and what you're looking to do now. It sounds like you're at a point where you feel like you can source other people's money. Talk about that strategy and why you're at that point. I mean,
so we got to the point with Southern Sons Property. It's like we built this portfolio ourselves, my wife and I. It's like we worked as a team. We built it together. Boom. It's like it hit that level 1 financial freedom that we wanted. So it's like kind of box that up and kind of, optimize that as we go. And now, along this real estate journey, it's like we've really fallen in love with short-term rentals, and so now we're starting to talk to different people who are like, hey, I don't have the time to understand this world. I don't have the time to learn these systems. It's like, can I come in as a cash partner? And so that's really the next evolution in our business is, it's like we run, the properties because we're closer to them in the Southeast between the Smokies and then also Blue Ridge and other areas. It's like, we attract the cash partners, we work with them, and we, run the short-term rentals, we launch them, we design them. And it's something we're starting to talk to investors about now. And it's a lot of fun. We're excited about it.
Great. I want to talk a little bit about the mindset that you've had to go through, or maybe the mindset shift in this process, because we just mentioned how it takes this effort to save up the money, drain your bank account, invest, do it again, find other ways to source money. But in the midst of all this, you encountered a medical emergency, so to speak, and maybe elaborate on that, because I think it gives people one, hope, but two, it also gives them the idea that all this adversity and you're still able to make this thing go and give yourself financial freedom. So just talk about what happened. I know that there was something that happened where you had to have brain surgery. So I think it may resonate with our audience.
Yeah. So I was diagnosed with what's called Chiari malformation type 1. I mean, in simple terms, it's pretty much the back of my brain was dipping into my spinal canal. And so imagine this, like the back of your brain, and it's clogging the spinal canal. So the back of my brain was being squeezed and compressed on, and also my brain wasn't getting a lot of the fluids it needed. So what it would cause is headaches, dizziness, nausea, eye issues, different issues there. So in 2020, it's like we had that conversation of like, crap, like we got to have this surgery. And 2021. And so at the start of 2022 is when we had it. And it's a terrifying conversation. We have twin boys. We found out we have another one on the way, and I'm staring down what felt like the barrel of a gun. It's like, I got to have freaking brain surgery. And not only brain surgery, it's brain, skull, and spine, because they actually took out a piece of my skull and replaced it with titanium to allow the brain to come back up and breathe. So, it's like, it was a major surgery. I had the surgery 9 weeks ago in February 2022. A lot of fears come with that. People who have kids, it's like they can relate to it a lot. It's like you have a lot of different fears. My wife lost her dad at a young age. So all of a sudden I now have young kids, and I'm like, oh my God, what the heck am I doing? But one of the things I did not worry about was the financial side of it. And I think that for me is how I'll always be kind of grateful or thankful, if you even can be, to the real estate investing stuff. Because it's like, I knew if something happened to me, it's like the cash flow from the properties would pay the bills, and the equity in the properties would always be there for them and the kids if they ever needed something big. It's like, so you have a lot of fears when you're about to go through brain surgery. And it was nice to just be like, all right, if something happens to my family, they're taken care of. When my wife's dad suddenly passed away, it's like they lost everything. It's like they lost their house after 3 months. They were, in a hotel. It's like her mom was an absolute savage and put 4 kids on her back and just like got them through it and kicked ass. But it's like, as a dad, it's like just the idea of putting your family through that, it's just like, it's your worst nightmare. So real estate kind of being there to be like, okay, if something does happen during this surgery, because there's I could have been paralyzed. There's other things besides even death. It's like, at least I know that, my family's taken care of. So
if this isn't a testament, Joe, to one, multiple income streams, right? But also the level of passivity that you can get to, and all the benefits of appreciation, cash flow, and tax benefits, all of that with real estate, then I don't know what is, because you just kind of said real estate potentially saved your financial situation, which is amazing. But if you were reliant on one income and you have to be out of work for 10, 12 weeks, and if you're not at this great financial position where you have all this money invested, health is wealth, is it not? If you don't have that, what are you working all these hours in the day for? That story right there is like kind of what it's all about for us. Like, if you can stop now, what you've told yourself is you could take as much time off as you need for things that you actually want to do, and you're still going to be okay. So it's very, I can't imagine what you went through, but it's eye-opening to hear it from our perspective.
And it's like, especially in the TV industry, it's like, I know a lot of guys who make, their average salary is $500,000 a year and there's a lot of executive producers who make a lot of money, and it's wild to see. But at the same time, it's like, they don't understand that their income does not go to their family if something happens to them. It's like, it can be in a blink of an eye. It's like, my wife lost her dad when he literally took a nap on the couch, it's like, and he died. So it's like, this stuff can happen in a blink of the eye. And you see these people, especially in my industry, they make a lot of money, they spend a lot of money. And it's like, your income does not go to your family if something happens to you, even on the less morbid side, if you lose your job. So it's like, you owe it to your family to provide multiple streams of income, to invest in asset classes. You cannot just sit back and do traditional investing and be happy with just your income. You got to think outside the box. Like if I can go on a small rant, it's like the education system. Traditional education teaches you how to be middle class. Traditional investing makes sure you stay middle class. And I mean, I know that might not be a popular statement, but it's true. It's like we're taught to be middle class, like how the way they teach us is, teaches us how to be that. And then traditional financing, it's like, you're not going to be rich on a 401k. And it's like, who wants to wait until 65? I mean, especially in the TV industry, it's like you're dated out by the time you're 50.
Yeah, I have an opinion on that, and it may be unpopular, but I don't like that the education system does that, but I think that it is trained that way for the masses because the majority of people will not become real estate investors and will not become entrepreneurs and will not be these big investors. So it's almost built for the common person, which helps run the economies of our country. So as much as I wish that there was more involved, I understand why you're taught to be an employee. I just think that we want more people to look at it like take a step back and zoom out a little bit and understand that is what's being taught. So if you want to be average and you want to be like everybody else, that's okay. But that's why it's being taught that way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's like if you're seeking out podcasts like this or seeking out different books, it's like you want outside of that box. And you're right. It's completely, there are so many people that are so happy with traditional education, traditional investing. And it's like, well, we'll call it a day at 65 years old. And that's great. If that's what makes you happy, then great. But it's like, if you're listening to the Juice Boys here, it's like, you want something more, I mean, you're seeking that education, you're seeking those opportunities that are outside the box. And that's what's important.
It's incredible. I know you guys were just chatting for a little bit, but just your whole story.
I was locked in there.
No, I was just enjoying. True story of perseverance, man. Like, I just want you to know it's inspiring to us. It's incredible. You've been through a lot 9 weeks ago, and now you're ripping a podcast. Like, dude, it's no feat to sleep on. So super impressed. Just wanted to say that. So thanks for sharing your story. It's very relatable, and like everyone's going to go through shit in their lives, and it could be not so bad, could be near death. It could be, things are going to happen, right? You got to expect the unexpected. And I think it's very important that you brought up real estate as a foundation. I think a lot of people, we've had a lot of people drop in the DMs or like family members and just friends now. They're like, hey, like, what are your thoughts on my financial picture? Like, what should I be doing? And, this might be over a drink or like a quick stop by at a party or at their house or something like that. And you're like, well, it's going to take a lot longer for me to walk you through like your specific scenario. And I don't know everything either, right? I'm still learning. We're young guys. But what we do recommend is real estate is at some level a foundational piece to your financial picture. And that's, hey, even if it's 1, 2, 3 properties, just so you have some extra income coming in the event of an emergency, or just something else to maybe spark your interest to think differently. And then you can build off other streams of income. But just like shifting that mindset, it's an incredible cushion. And I think it's nice. It's a nice testament to your story where you talked about the ebbs and flows of TV, and it doesn't have to be with your job, right? It could just be, hey, listen, like you wanted some time off, right? And you can, you have income coming in, spend time with your family. Like Corey and I just think about all the time, like no day is promised, right? And you're just like, at some point you go through and you're like, dude, like I just want to have a day or maybe like a 3-week stint for me just to like live and like explore a new passion. Cause you lose that working the 9-to-5 grind a lot. You see people just like, what do you do for fun? You have to like cram it in on a 2-day thing or from 5 to 9 after work and grab a couple drinks or something. Like, how can you explore you?
I mean, I heard one quote that like completely rocked me, and it was on someone's podcast, and they were like, I don't want to ask someone permission to go hang out with my kids. If my kid has a game or a soccer game or a football game, it's like, I'm going to freaking go. And that, you listen to a lot of stuff, you read a lot of stuff. That was one line that just like, I was like, no, I don't want to ask anyone's permission. If I want to go hang out with my kids, I'm going to go freaking hang out with my kids. And, when I don't want to ask permission.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing because, so we put a post on Instagram the other day and people were like, I don't like, why do you want to retire? Like you act like work is bad. Like you act like you want to sit on a beach. And it's like, I think the message is twisted here, people. I think what we're trying to tell people is that I personally don't want to have to answer to somebody or something, some cog in a wheel that I don't feel like I need to be a part of. in my soul. Like it's deep, right? It's not just like this, like if I have to go sit in meetings that I don't feel productive in, that I don't want to be in, that is this whole thing. Like you just are a prime example that nothing is really promised. Like you may not have come out of that surgery. So like if I get hit by a bus tomorrow and I spend an hour in a meeting today that I don't want to spend, I mean, proportionally of my life, like that's a big big time frame. Like I want to be able to do what I want with it. So I think it's philosophical, but it's a great conversation because the whole why behind it is most important thing. And you experience something real that told you that. So I love that there.
Yeah, dude, even like thinking about, I know this is super relevant when we're recording this, it's mid-April, but like Dwayne Haskins, this young college quarterback that went to the NFL, just literally I believe he got out of his car on the highway because it ran out of gas and got pegged by a bus. He's dead. I thought about them like, dude, this guy had so much promise, and he's he's not only supporting himself, but think about when you make it out of a certain situation, there's probably other people that he was helping lift up, whether it's friends, family, parents, and hey, I made it. And like, he's expecting, you think of these NFL guys, right? They're like, and it probably goes back to your producer situation again, like your executive producer, like, cool, they're making millions of bucks or 500K plus, but if they're out of the game, that's gone. So when you get it, you need to learn how to use it. And so that's kind of like our whole mantra is like, hey, we're here to give you your weekly dose of financial education, right? And like a little sliver of like what other people are doing to prevent their families from suffering, whether they can work or not, right? You have something in set in stone that can kind of keep chugging along for you. Yeah,
and it can come off as like, I don't know, like bragging sometimes, but it's like, I try to share information of like, listen, like this stuff works. Like it's security. It's just, we have our Instagram page where we share a bunch of information and a bunch of stuff about our story, but it's like, sometimes that stuff I worry, can come off as bragging, but it's like, no, like I just want you guys to see there's a different way. Like all we've been taught is one road. It's like, there's other roads. And like, that's not commonly known. Like I had 3 properties. I'd never heard of Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'd never heard of Bigger Pockets. Like I never knew about that stuff. And then as soon as I found it, boom, like everything took off. And it's like, if someone has a chance to stumble across that information, it's like, you got to give it to them.
Totally. What a great conversation. And I almost don't want it to end, but I want to transition the show a little bit into, let's go into maybe like a favorite deal that you have, maybe whether it's one that took you to the next level. You can talk about your short-term rental, whatever comes to mind for you. Just give us some like details on the purchase price, what it cash flows, maybe what the renovation budget was. If you can just dive in a little bit deep there, and then we'll wind down the show and get to know you a little bit more personally, like we typically do.
Selfishly, please make it a short-term rental.
There you go. You pick one of the two.
Just pick one of the short-term rentals, just because it's so relevant to what, maybe this is selfish 100%.
I mean, it is
where we are going towards our portfolio. And I just want to clearly change your life, right? We talked about that and it set you off. So please, peel back a couple of layers for us.
Yeah. So I'd say, I think it was June 2021 is when we bought our first Sevierville cabin. The purchase price was, so here's a funny story. It was listed at 600. Because it's Sevierville, we came in at like 650. And so the seller was like, boom, and so we got it. And then like, without us even asking, they're like, hey, we're actually going to lower the price to 585 because we're worried it's not going to appraise. Because as you guys know, like, especially in the short-term rental game, it's like, they're having so many issues with appraisals. It's like, and then you have to offer appraisal gaps or no appraisal contingencies. Like it's a mess. So we came in at like 650, they agreed to it. And then they were like, hey, we're going to lower it down to 585. And we were like, what? And they're like, but no inspection, no contingencies, nothing like that. It's 585 straight. And we're like, done, sold. So that was like a big surprise. We're like, all right. And we got in there, we added a hot tub. My wife decorated and crushed that. And that thing was ready to rent after 3 weeks after purchase.
Joe, just to give people an idea of what that means, I was talking to Rye about this literally before the show, because I was saying that we just got approved for $100,000 more than we thought we were going to get on our pre-approval. And we're like, that's great. But if we offer 650, we're in that range, right? If you offer 650 and it appraises for 585, tell people what's going on. Like, you have to come up with that difference as the investor out of pocket, correct?
Yeah. So if it doesn't get lowered to 585 numbers, what I mean. Yeah. It's that pre or like that offer letter stuff is really important with like the appraisal contingency or the appraisal gap. Like we offered, when we sent in 650, we said no appraisal gap, no appraisal contingency. They just voluntarily brought it down to 585, which is super unique. But we just lost out on a property in Florida, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, because we weren't willing to do no appraisal contingency. So what that means is, like, so say if we agreed to 650, the appraisal came in at 550, we as the investor and buyer would have had to make up that difference. And we were like, absolutely not. Because what happens if this thing comes in for 500 or 400? Like, we didn't want to be tied to it. You were then locked into it. Like, to me, no appraisal contingency is scary. So instead of no appraisal contingency, we do appraisal gaps. So we'll say, hey, we'll cover $10,000 if it, comes in $10,000 lower. We'll come out of pocket and cover that.
Got it. Okay. That's very cool. That's good to know, because we were hoping to not have to, pay extra. We're already putting the money down, closing costs. But, if it's a $10,000 difference and it makes it or breaks us getting the property, like, it seems like it's worth it there. But I was talking to a lender down in this Orlando market, and he was saying that the appraisals are the number one thing that are stopping this. And also it's putting this flux of pressure on the market where it's pushing these prices higher and higher. So I'm not necessarily sure if there's a bubble or anything like that, but properties that are going for $600,000 are being bought for $650,000, $700,000, and because the investors on their side, they don't care if they're paying another $500 a month in their mortgage, because they're making $40,000 in cash flow. So instead of $40,000 in cash flow, they make $37,000 in cash flow, and they just don't. It's not that big of a deal, where somebody coming out of pocket with that, who's just working a 9-to-5 job, who's buying it as a primary residence, that's a problem. So that's what's pushing this market forward. And I don't know what's going to come of it. I'd be lying if I knew, but I just think if you're looking for a short-term rental, it's something important to note.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, here's an interesting kind of just theory. I mean, it's off what we're talking about, but it's like, so right now, a lot of our long-term renters, they don't mind paying this high rent. They're like, sure, whatever, because a lot of these long-term renters, it's like they just sold their home and got $200,000, $300,000 net cash flow. And these people are making $50,000 a year. So they're like, yeah, I'll pay a shit ton in rent. But what happens in 2 or 3 years from now, when they just blew through that money and now they have no equity to exchange and they're still making $50,000 a year. So it's like, I think in 2 or 3 years, those people that cashed out and then just started renting, there's going to become that epiphany moment of like, oh shit.
Yeah,
so
that's an interesting point, Joe. But I will also say that the world is moving towards more of a nomadic lifestyle. So I think, like, I'll give you an example. My sister is a content creator. So she's able to do this maybe a little bit more easily than somebody has to show up in an office every day. But she's going to Florida for a month, and she was in doing an Airbnb. She's kind of like renting in the Northeast, then going to Florida, and then she's going to Arizona, like these month-long stays, kind of midterm, to create content, but also to like just live somewhere else. And I think that with these things that we have right here, the more money that's able to be made off here, the less people that are going to be going into offices. That's why I fully believe in short-term rentals as a long-term investment, because I think that for me, how happy would I be to be able to go travel and go to, I don't know, California for a month and work there if I can still be productive and just be in a new environment. I think that's how the younger generation of people are thinking. Probably less people are going to own homes. That's a whole nother conversation. But to be able to travel and move around, I think the midterm rentals are an interesting piece, because you can
getting into that
significant cash flow, but you don't have this like nightly turnover. So
no, we're trying to get into that right now with one of our Knoxville units, because there's regulations within the city. Nashville, Knoxville, it's like they have regulations with like how long a person needs to stay or how long the lease is. So we're looking at turning one of our long-term rentals into a midterm rental and doing 3 to 6 to 9 month rentals.
Got it. Cool. So before we wind down the show, the second to last segment, I want to just get your take on what are your future goals? I know you brought it up a little bit with the partner and trying to source cash, but like, do you have a 3 to 5 year goal to take this 9 units to 20? Or are you like, you know what, I know where I need to be fat fire. Just give us an idea of what the next, 5 years looks like for you and your family, ideally.
I mean, we would like to be partnering with different investors for short-term rentals. Like, we want to be acquiring anywhere from, 3 to 5 a year over the next several years, and help other investors who don't understand the short-term game get into it and be the boots on the ground and develop these things, launch them. There is so much that does go into it those first 2 or 3 weeks. And it's like, if these people are out in California, Colorado, New York, or Boston, wherever, and they're far away from it. It's like, we know how to launch these now. We know how to make them profitable. We know the systems to put in place. And so that's really what we're running with now, and the conversations we're starting to have. And I mean, it's exciting. Me and my wife and I were someone gave us a nice compliment recently where like, we're opposite where we need to be opposite, and we're alike where we need to be alike, which I think is really important. It's like, I love the macro big picture stuff. I love the chessboard of it, whereas she gets into the details. She has more power tools than any dude I know. And so, I mean, she renovates. I mean, she tears apart anything she can get her hands on, but she can also design. It's funny because she comes from an accounting background, but in this game, it's like she crushes it with more of the hands-on stuff.
I love that, Joe. We interviewed Eagle Hill Homes, Sam and Nick, husband and wife duo. And Sam is the one who runs around. She's doing all the renovations. She's the GC. And she walks into a room and people are like, all right, they're talking to Nick about the renovations. It's like, no, let's screw up these social norms here. Like, this is like, she loves it.
She's like, look at me.
She's
buddy.
like, no, over here.
The boss is over here.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
and he loves it. So as far as I know, but yeah, so go ahead, Ray.
Love it. I just want to touch on it because I know you mentioned between like 25 and 30K within a couple months in the holiday season for your Airbnb. That specific property, can you just mention so people can get a little bit excited here? Like, what's your net cash flow on that for last year, or for your best year, I guess?
Oh God. I mean, we're still in our first year because we just bought it. No, wait. Yeah, we're still in our first year.
Okay.
So I mean,
well, if you give us like the months and we can project it.
God, I'd have to look that up.
Or just, maybe a roundabout. I'm just curious because we've talked to other investors that have been like, this property can generate $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for the year. Is that in that range, do you think, for you, for one of the properties? I mean, well, you said 1,500 a month, so I guess that gives us the idea 20,000 for your year. It should.
That's the net, but it's like, I mean, that November, December months. I mean, it was netting, double, triple that. It's like, I mean, in gross money on it averages about 7,000 to 8,000.
Got it.
A month.
Great.
So I mean, it's wild.
40. So we're gonna guesstimate 35-40, which is awesome.
Yeah,
that's amazing for cash flow.
It's incredible. So you're not getting that from a long-term rental.
Yeah, cheers.
We still love them.
Yeah, but we're good for the foundation. You need to have long-term rentals in your portfolio.
Love it. Yeah, you're right. So we made it to the core four, and we're gonna ask the same 4 questions. We got pretty philosophical. I don't know if we can beat it, but this is to get to know you a little bit more, a little bit deep. What makes you tick? Question number 1 is, what is your favorite business or real estate investing book or resource if you don't read books?
I mean, I'd say Wealthy Gardener is what I'm on right now. I'm really digging that. It's more just about like life and money, and just kind of the balance of that all. I'm really digging that right now. Reading that.
You confidently say nobody has mentioned Wealthy Gardener before, so that's very cool. What is who's the author? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head.
We can look it up.
The worst thing I do is I bounce between 2 or 3 books at the same time. I'm like reading 4-Hour Work Week and Wealthy Gardener. And it's like,
story of my life, dude.
I do the same thing, man.
I need to stop doing that.
At least mine. Like I just get bored. It's something new will pop to my mind. I'm like, okay, short-term rentals. I got to read Avery Carl's book. And then I'm like, I need to source private money. So then I go to Matt Faircloth's book. And then it's just like, dude, I got to finish, right? Like I got to keep honing on the lane. I will say something that's started to really change my life and like kind of trim the fat in a way and like give me tunnel vision. YouTube is incredible. You can focus on one topic and dive all the way in. Like I went to, there was obviously Avery Carl's channel. Then there was, he's the new host of the Bigger Pockets podcast.
Rob Built.
Rob Built is another one, but then who's the one?
Tony Robinson.
There you go.
Yeah.
Tony Robinson. And so these guys, I just like crushed through their channels and they're so informative on everything short-term rental. They were like telling you what type of beds to put in your properties, how to decorate it, what you want, the rehab costs and like the budget you should work with. And then the little tips and tricks for the owner's closet, just like things you wouldn't think of, like, oh, you got to write a guest book. Here's a nice little touch here. Just incredible things that maybe reading a book gets dry at some point. And, when you're on YouTube, you can, I can put it down for a little bit, come back to it. But as long as you're taking notes, I don't know. For me, it's been the new way.
If you're a visual learner too. Yeah.
And that's me, visual learner all the way. So,
yeah.
Well, here's the other book I'd say that really helped just like my mindset and just leveling up was Who Not How. Who Not How was like, oh man, I'm so, I was so bad with just like, oh, if something popped up, I'm just going to deal with it. And it's like having that who not how mentality, just even in the TV world too, has helped me a lot. It's like that. I love that book. That book is like top 3 for me.
I love Who Not How, but so we've mentioned that on the show before, but The Wealthy Gardener, Lessons on Prosperity Between Father and Son by John Saforic. So that sounds like a book I'd want to read, even though I basically can't read and only listen to audiobooks. So
you'll listen. Hey, crank it out. This dude refuses to read a book, but he'll listen to
a
million podcasts in a day. So yeah, that's good. All right. Next question. This one's a fun one for you. If we handed you an additional $50K in cash right now, discretionary income, how would you use it? Whether it's spending or investing or a little bit of a mix, and why?
You need a new car?
I have a 2010 F-150 that I haven't had a payment on in like 5 years. So
I'm millionaire next door. That's a fun fact. Most millionaires drive Ford F-150s, the highest percentage. Isn't that crazy?
That thing has like 200,000 miles on. So the way I see it, I have another 100,000 to go.
Damn straight.
No, I mean, 50,000 of a discretionary income drops on my lap. I mean, to be honest with you, it's like, I want to buy like a pleasure Airbnb. It's like we have a cabin or short-term rental in Sevierville and Blue Ridge. It's like, we're not big cabin people. We like it. It's cool. We like to take the kids up there too when it's not booked, but it's like, we're more beach people. So, it's like, if I had that 50,000, I'd put it towards buying like a beachfront or close to a beach short-term rental.
I'm a beach guy too. Rye's not really a beach guy.
I just look at him, dude. I'm He's like pasty. A polar bear. I get crushed in the sun. I like the beach.
You're at the beach a lot for not liking the beach, actually, because you got family.
I got family. It's actually fun. I grew up in the beach, and then my in-laws have a place at the beach. So I'm like, dude, I'm always at the beach, and I don't love the beach.
Yeah, so I love the beach. I grew up down the shore, so
you could catch me like, dude, like I want to go to like Switzerland or it just like. Yeah. I went to Iceland. That was like the best trip of my entire life. Shout out to all the boys that we went with. But dude, it was absolutely incredible. I know this is a sidetrack, but like one day it's snowing, one day you're on, it feels like a rainforest the other day. Then you're on a beach with a torn down plane and you're climbing through it. There's waterfalls. I was like, I experienced like everything, but it wasn't a sunny beach. And I was like, this is my type of vacation. Yeah. It's an adventure. So yeah, I'm not a beach guy, but yeah, we're just so happened to looking in Orlando, which is pretty much semi-beachy.
Beachy, but Florida's like just generally warm and warm weather. Yeah, so but we're not too far from the beach down there.
There for the
I'll get you to the beach.
All right.
Anyway, third question. Joe, what has been your biggest mistake in your real estate investing journey, and how have you learned from it?
Oh God, it kills me.
He knows it.
I know it. So. I mean, I live in Knoxville. I'm like literally 45 minutes away from the mecca of short-term rentals in Sevierville. And so 2018, 2019, like there was whispers of it. And I was like, no, I don't want to become a short-term rental host. It's too much work. We're long-term rental people. This is what we do. I'm pretty sure my wife brought it up, which I would never admit to her. Hope you guys aren't recording. I'm pretty sure she brought it up too. I regret having tunnel vision, and I get that a lot. I get horse blinders on where I'm like, here's the goal, go. And I regret not being more open to that because like the cabin I bought for $585 in 2021 was $250 in 2018, So it's like and that's a lesson I've learned. Like whenever there is a new shiny object, I do make sure to give it a little bit of attention, try to understand it, learn it, take someone out to lunch who does it, like just really kind of dive into it. But, so that was a lesson. It's like, I'm now more open to learning about some of the new things. Cause man, the people that got into Sevierville in like 2018, 2019 are just crushing it.
Well, you're a macro guy. I think that certainly there will be another real estate crash. Absolutely no doubt about it. And then there will be another one after that and another one after that. But there has never been a time in a 20 or 30 year span where you have not looked at a property and it hasn't, not never, but it's very rare that it hasn't gone up significantly. So the good news is that every time you feel like a property is expensive, it is expensive for that time, most of the times. And then in 10 years, it won't be expensive anymore. Or in 5 years, it won't be expensive anymore. So just if you always remember that, is if your goal is to hold for at least medium term, and don't sell in the middle of a crash, you're probably going to do pretty good. So that property that you bought for 585 that was worth 200 and whatever you said, 10 years, it'll probably be worth $1 million, and you won't even think about that 300 grand that you lost. But I know it stings right now.
I could sell that cabin I bought for 585 for mid sevens easy tomorrow. I mean, it's like, that's how fast it already went up. I've never bought, and I told this to someone the other day who was asking about real estate. I've never bought a property and thought I got this fantastic price. I always feel like I overpaid a little bit because the market was hot. And then 6 months later, I'm like, holy shit, I got a deal. You know, it's like, that's really, I mean, yeah.
It's funny that you say that. I bought my primary residence for $250,000 in 2018. And I remember the feeling. It was flipped. So it was brand new. It was the property itself was old, but everything in it was redone. And I remember thinking, man, 250, like I'm buying at the top of the market. I'm buying the nicest house on the block. Like, what am I doing? And lo and behold, all of these buildings going up around, like all of this growth in this area. And, 4 years later, you got an extra $125,000 in equity. And it's like, okay, I think I'm good. Like, I think I made the right decision just by buying and holding for 4 years. Now we're living through a period of time that real estate's been very forgiving. Obviously, if I bought in 2005 and 2008 happened, I just would have to hold and just be like, screw it. I'm not going to sell it. That's the whole thing.
I was hung up on $2,500. It was like 362.50, and I was like, nah, I'm not doing it unless it's 360 flat. And the real estate agent's like, really? Like, what are you doing? I'm like, it's just the point of it. Like, the premise is like the principle, I should say. And I was like, he can trim down. She's like, all right. Lo and behold, 5 years later, it went up 100 grand.
Yeah.
I would have been on watch right there because
if you didn't go through with it.
Yeah. And it's just funny. You live and you learn, right? I didn't know I was going to
get into
real estate. It was my first big purchase. So I was like, hey, you learn that you make the deal when you buy, right? And but really $2,500, 10 listening, dude, it ain't worth it. So just it's interesting. Like, congrats on what you got. And like you said, you can flip it tomorrow for mid sevens. It's going to be worth way more. So you'll forget about that cash and see the cash flow monthly anyways. That'll probably make you forget. You're like, dude, whatever. Like, I'm good. It's pumping me with cash.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that's what's so addicting about the short-term rentals. It's like, you just feel like you're getting that ping, every other day, because people are checking in and checking out and you're just not even interacting with them. It's like, who's at the cabin right now? What? It's addicting. I love it.
You
can't wait to feel it.
It's like a game, dude. Yeah, I can't wait. Well, last question of the core four is, what do you want your legacy to be? So what gets you out of bed every morning? Why do you do what you do? And kind of like what makes you tick?
I would say just building something for my boys. It's like, I'm going to have 3 boys, the third one's due in like 7 or 8 weeks, and it's like building something for them. It's like, I feel like my parents, it's like, they were 2 teachers. Their salaries when they started out were $7,000 a year and $8,000 a year. So it's like, but they built a legacy for me in the sense of like, they were buying properties when I was a kid and I saw that. I didn't get it until much later in life, but like, I saw that they bought these properties that gave us as a family a lot more stability. So it's like my legacy. It's like, I want to hand this off. That's why we call the Southern Sons properties. It's like, I want the boys to take over, it's like, I want them to then pass it down. It's like, I want to be great granddaddy Joe who helped take it to the next level. It's like, that's what I want my legacy to be.
Hell yeah. I love that.
Great answer. So made to the last drop. Like we do every show. This question is, how old did you say you were, Joe?
36.
36. Okay. So let's say you cut your age in half. You went back to 18. What would you tell your 18-year-old self, knowing everything that you know now, all the adversity that you've been through, the wealth that you started to build, the job, whatever it is, you can pick any, lane to go in here, but what would you tell your 18-year-old self?
What advice would you give?
Yeah. What advice?
What advice would I give?
Right on the spot, Joe.
I know.
We don't play around.
Yeah. I mean, just, obviously start investing earlier. I didn't start investing in properties until I was, 28, but I mean, just be more open-minded. I mean, I wish I broke from the traditional path earlier. It's like, I was very like climb the company ladder. I mean, because I started in TV at so young, I climbed the ladder faster. And I was just super focused on like, I want to be at the best of my industry, super young. And I did. I got to the top level I could get by the time I was 25. And so and I just had horse blinders on and I worked myself to death. I literally got hit by a car one time in between work and went back into work and kept working. And like my back was having like spasms. Like in the TV industry, there's this like martyrism.
It's a culture, right?
Yeah. It's like, especially in Boston, it's like, whoever works themselves harder and all that stuff and hurts themselves the most, it's like they're the best employee. And it's like, I wish if I could go back to 18-year-old self, it's like I'd shake myself and be like, no, think differently. Like look outside this box. Like, yeah, it's good to climb the ladder and bring in more income, but it's like, look bigger, think more long-term.
I love it. I think the people that you're working hard, really, really hard for and trying to please and trying to impress are probably the investors at the end of the day anyway. They're probably investing their money elsewhere, growing it for themselves so that other people can work hard for them. So if that's not an indictment, I don't know what is.
All right, Joe. So if people enjoyed the show, loved your story, want to network, connect, and potentially even get in on a deal with you, where can they find you and start getting the ball rolling?
Yeah, so we launched our Instagram page at Southern Sons Properties about 6 or 7 months ago, and we've had a lot of fun with that. We've connected with a lot of great people. We kind of said it's like, hey, let's just put it up there for a little bit and see what happens, and then just boom, it's like we feel like we've just connected with so many like-minded people. It's been a lot of fun sharing our story and our journey and the different properties we're doing and the work we're doing. So it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I'd love to connect with more people. So yeah, it's at Southern Sons Properties.
So at Southern Sons Properties. Awesome. We'll make sure to tag in all the clips and push people your way because we had a pleasure networking with you. You're a great guy. So hopefully you guys can find a couple of new partners for deals.
This has been an amazing show. I want to thank you so much for coming on. Your story is so relatable. It's something that I think anybody that is listening can achieve, and you're financially free. Pretty powerful. So thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure, Joe. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And we can't wait to have everybody listen and share your story.
Yeah. Thank you guys for what you do and the information you provide. I love tuning in every week. So thank you.
Thanks for tuning in this week. If you enjoyed the show and like what you heard, please subscribe, share with friends, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. The more ratings we get, the more eyes we'll get on our show. And in turn, we'll be able to provide you all with high quality guests. It's simple. Open your podcast app, type in our podcast name, The Weekly Juice, click on reviews, and let us know what you think. Thanks so much and see you next week.